Thank you guys for coming. My name's Angelina Palmisano, and this is Magic in the Margins, a painter's ode to love, loss, and laughter. I would like to take a second to thank the Committee of A Painter's Dreams, consisting of Professor Carla Poindexter sitting as chair, followed by Professors America Boslia, Nicholas Kalemba, and Erica Sobrak. I would like to thank my whole cohort, who are the only reason I've ever turned in anything on time, my dad for his unwavering love and support, and his wonderful wife, Laurie, who has been like a mother to me. And lastly, to the love of my life, Marino Pena. Thank you. To start things off, I would like to delve a little bit into my upbringing. This is a little taste of the Palmisano household, and this is me. I'm a Florida native, as I was born and raised here in Central Florida. I come from very humble beginnings, growing up in a blended family. All in all, I have 8 brothers and 3 boy cousins. After my parents divorced when I was 12, my dad basically took over the role as both parents for me, and it was truly just me and a bunch of boys, or wild animals. I like to say that I was raised with wolves, which would suggest a wild, uncivilized, or uncouth upbringing, and it was, but we were always taught to be respectful and kind. This photograph for me is a private reminder of where I come from. We all played lots of games, board games, computer games, video and arcade games, primarily on consoles like the SNES or Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and the Nintendo 64. My favorite games being Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, and Aladdin. Games like these and family are themes that often make appearances within my work. To give a little more insight into my background, I would like to read for you an excerpt from the introduction of my thesis. I was raised in a family of people who love art, music, food, gardening, and booze. My late grandparents are Sicilian and Polish immigrants who fled here after World War II and raised their kids to be as Americanized as possible as to avoid discrimination. My dad is a musician, a pianist, and my mother was a painter, ceramicist, waitress, and alcoholic. I was very loved and supported even after my family fractured when I was 12, at least by my father, who raised me with enough love to almost fill the void of an absent mother. Until that point, I grew up watching art all around me, whether it be my mother making a pretty remarkable cake in the shape of a grand piano before the British Bake Off was a thing, or my dad making hand-cut Valentine's cards with the craftsmanship akin to that of a professional contemporary paper-cut artist. Music always filled the air, while Bob Ross taught my mother to embrace the mistakes on her canvas as happy little accidents. I embrace mistakes in my paintings in the same way to this day. I come from a blended family of 8 brothers, 3 older, 1 younger, 2 I don't know, and 2 more that came much later in life from my father's 3rd marriage when I was 17. I am the only girl. We were conventionally poor, lived on a budget my whole life, and I've watched as my biological mother taped a deck of cards in the shape of a Christmas tree to a wall through tears because we couldn't afford one at Christmas time. Even though times could be tough, it didn't take much to entertain us because we always made do with what we had. There was a lot of roughhousing and horseplay going on, while Boy George from the Culture Club sang to my mother, "Do you really want to hurt me?" Eventually, Dad had to work 70-plus hours a week after the divorce to stay afloat, and ultimately taught me what dedication and a good work ethic looks like. My mother taught me how to love fiercely and how to cope when love abandons you. She was also the person who introduced me to painting, which is why I'm here reading this now. I make paintings that celebrate life, its beautiful and tender moments paying tribute to friends, family, and humor in tandem with the unavoidable pain and loss that make the good times something worth cherishing. I make paintings as an escape and resistance to the hardships that I have faced in life, and to create magical spaces that my viewers can also escape into. Next, I want to dive a little bit into my life as a commercial artist, as it bleeds directly into my private practices and these specific works were all made during my time in college. I am a painter, and I've been working full-time as a professional muralist since 2019. This had a big impact on shaping my artistic process within my studio because I first learned how to paint at a large scale. I work for a theming company called Immersive Scenic Studios, and I paint murals for themed companies inside of luxury vacation homes throughout all of Florida, now branching into many other states. My job can be very mainstream, but every once in a while, I will get a project with free reign to just about design and paint whatever I want, however I want to. This photograph is a painting for a bedroom based on the Japanese gaming company, Nintendo, and its long lineage of expansive game worlds. One of my coworkers dubbing the title for this project Pretendo for IP purposes. We know that it's not really free reign unless you can get a little weird with it. So, super excited by this prompt. My colleague and I thought it would be fun to paint a scene that looked like you were actually inside of a Donkey Kong/Mario level during gameplay, meaning we would create a scene where you run across our screen, try to beat our level by passing a 10-foot-tall banana video game hub, avoiding spicy little flame characters, collect coins by bouncing off of a grumpy fish, and bust free some delicious bananas that are frozen in ice. I wanted it to be truly engaging. I was 9 years old again, at my Bapchi house, eating creamy chicken ramen noodles, excited by a world that I could literally imagine myself jumping and swimming through. This mural was an exercise in creating a space full of potential magical happenings. Within both my professional art, such as these works, and personal, I often paint what I refer to as nods to the original artists that I'm referencing. Paying tribute to my influences is how I show respect, honor, and give credit to the original creators that have had a big impact on my psyche. In this case, paying homage to Shigeru Miyamoto, the famous Japanese game designer from the early 1980s, known for designing not only Donkey Kong, but Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda, among many more household names that made their way to North America that I played as a little girl on my grandmother's floor. I began to venture into what I learned were called mindscapes. Mindscapes explore the personal landscapes of the mind, which are shaped by individual experiences, consciousness, and subconscious thoughts. These 9-foot circles were designed for garages, converted into arcade rooms inside of clients' homes. I was beginning to develop a distinctive style, but wasn't quite there yet because I couldn't make them too personal. My suite, a term of endearment that my mother used to call me, is a mindscape full of the retro gaming references I had been so eager to pull from for nostalgic purposes. This was personal, the first painting that I truly made for me, and it was here at UCF. My suite has the triumphant Nintendo banana of victory, as seen in the second image, sitting next to Diddy Kong, the monkey in the red hat. It has Boo, the ghost from the ghost house in Super Mario World with their iconic purple bricks, and the red spots from Cool Spot, as seen in the last image, with the red spot that's wearing sunglasses antagonizing a hermit crab. Cool Spot is still one of the dumbest games I've ever played in my entire life, wherein you are literally the red spot from a 7-Up soda bottle that comes to life and fights crabs on a beach. This painting holds core memories of my childhood, the gloriously stupid ones and all. Moving into a little bit about my process, the main title of my thesis is Magic in the Margins, because whether it be portraiture, landscapes, or a combination of the two, I create magical spaces that are portals into another dimension. The presence of a house in a painting is not just an architectural structure, but a living, breathing universe whose walls hold dreams and whose corners extend into the infinite outreach of our minds. By entering these imagined interiors, we find refuge, creativity, and the possibility of transforming the ordinary into the magical. The French philosopher Gaston Bachelard sees these intimate spaces as essential to our sense of self, a gentle resistance to the impersonal world, and an ever-renewed invitation to wonder. My paintings are containers for memory, reverie, and the soul's quiet expansion. I'm invested in these playful environments, transforming each into worlds of safety, reflection, and a resistance to the sometimes grimness of the real world. Sometimes, my resistance can be silly, full of vibrant color and mischievous play. Bubbles are a motif that I use not only as a callback to the classic Super Mario World bubbles, but also to symbolize the fragility and ephemerality of the sweet innocence of childhood. And cheese puffs are symbolic of the immediate gratification of eating cheese puffs, and perhaps the almost just as immediate disappointment. I center my practice on creation and discovery, letting exploration, experimentation, and expression lead the way. While I care deeply about the end result of how a painting turns out, technically speaking, I do not let that bear my sole focus or hinder my creative process. Playfulness in the development of a story through chance is a key driver within my studio and keeps me interested in the work. My narrative is always fluid and develops as I react to what's being laid down on the canvas before me. I didn't imagine inhabiting those mini submarines until I finished painting them, and only then did I picture the absurd charm of running into a pissed-off pufferfish. The element of surprise in moments like these pull us into the water, conjuring opportunities of enchantment and transcendence that lift us away from everyday life. The spirituality in rendering light is the most essential tool in my work, which allows me to imbue the scene with fanciful energy and bits of humor. My art is nostalgic of classic Disney films like Pinocchio, The Little Mermaid, and Snow White, where glowing bits of light often twinkled and danced across the screen as if having minds of their own. The environment gradually comes alive, and with each serendipitous stroke, moments of magic emerge from within the medium. The way I weave light into the scene is what empowers it to come alive. Morphing and shifting, it becomes something that gently steers the viewer's emotions, infusing every moment with both incandescent and sentimental warmth to leave a tender feeling. Capturing a glowing light is how I express the human longing for meaning and connection beyond the tangible world. Here, light transcends a mere effect and becomes an expressive presence that shapes the very heart of the story. Or perhaps, there's something darker and more menacing at play, a sinister toxicity simmering beneath the surface. The way I wield light is deliberate. It cloaks my spaces in a richness that mirrors the nuanced layers of our natural world, yet it also pushes beyond the boundaries of mere physicality, transcending both space and time. I use light to summon drama. Unapologetically bold, it flows across forms and carves out stark contrasts, infusing the scene with tension and emotion. It's not just about illumination. It's about sculpting the atmosphere, amplifying every shadow and highlight to draw the viewer deeper into the storyline. This dramatic interplay gives weight and presence to even the quietest corners of the canvas, evoking a palpable state of mind. The sheer power of light, its ability to reveal and conceal, is what captivated me when I encountered one of my most recent influences, contemporary painter Matt Bollinger. He was born in 1980 in Kansas City, Missouri, and received his master's from the Rhode Island School of Design. I realized that what drew me into his work was the way he uses light to create mood and shape atmosphere. He said that he starts his painting process abstractly by just applying shapes of paint onto the canvas, a little bit like setting an intention before you begin a meditation. When an artist skillfully harnesses light, it brings out visceral emotion, allowing a painting to pulse with feeling, giving the moment its depth and making it profound. Almost every painting of his has someone who is backlit with deep shadows on their face, evoking a sense of mystery, elevating the emotional weight of the figure and creating intrigue. This draws us into an emotive, contemplative state where we're compelled to look closer and wonder about the history behind the person. His casting of light in shared custody, from a TV being left on long after the subject has fallen asleep, invites us into an intimate moment. A longing for intimate connection is a through line in my work and is something that I've been reaching for in my recent paintings. By illuminating this way, I hope to foster a private moment between the viewer and the figure, making each painting feel like a personal encounter rather than a distant observation. Intrepid Islands is the first half of a series with 4 smaller canvases. By stripping away any definitive scene, the focus shifts entirely to the figures, inviting us to be present with them. Meant to evoke a sense of comfort, it's a safe space, visually capturing the spirit of quality time. My intention was to portray the tenderness of a shared moment between friends or lovers caught candidly in mid-conversation, bathed in a dreamy golden glow, so warm and yellow that the mood itself radiates warmth. The painting celebrates fantasy and those often overlooked moments we share with loved ones. At its heart, it's an intimate snapshot and serves as a gentle reminder to stay present and savor the time we have with one another while we can. The other half of this series, A Man, Boy, Dog Staring Kind Man, Retreat, was painted on 4 12-inch by 12-inch canvases. Meant to be a little funny, they offer intimate close-up snapshots into my life. A young artist friend and ally, an anxious dog with crackhead energy waiting for a treat, a knowing stare, and a man I admire for the kindness you can see in his eyes. Using cast light like this to exaggerate closeness, I aim to connect viewers to my experience. I filled each image with emotion, stripped away complexity to focus solely on the figure, and explored how intricate visceral feelings can be conveyed through facial expressions alone. Each canvas tells its own story. If you've talked to me about art for more than 5 minutes, it's very likely that I have mentioned Nicole Eisenman multiple times. She is a master painter with great versatility, skill, and a passion for art history. She is the artist that I have looked to the most to pull inspiration from throughout my academic career. Eisenman is a French-born American artist known for her oil paintings and figurative works. When I began developing my style and narrative, she was the first artist that I was introduced to that painted the human body in a way that I hadn't seen before, and I felt a core reaction looking at her work. She has a mastery level of technical ability, yet harnesses that power, meticulously utilizing it in juxtaposition with manipulated form and unnatural color to create intriguing figures, scenes, and most importantly, to convey emotion. Morning Studio is a painting I never tire of. Artists have long explored the human form, but occasionally someone brings new life to it. Her work delicately blends realism with gestural exaggeration, creating a state of deep connection and attachment that goes beyond what's seen in the intertwining of bodies and cables. It can be felt. She taught me that capturing the feeling of a lived moment is far more evocative than merely replicating a photograph. Details of the lived experience being painted are essential to a captivating story. Even a recycled tuna can being used as an ashtray carries human history. It's a socioeconomic statement about class, a pungent anchor of familiarity for the viewer. It rests on a milk crate sitting next to a foam mattress lying bare on the floor, suggesting the couple are new occupants of their apartment. The tuna can is a trail of actions, from the tuna being consumed, the can getting cleaned or not, then being used as a container for discarded smoked cigarettes, crammed all together, all for us to further engage with the painter's possible narrative. I learned that trash is very valuable, and that a photograph as reference should be the starting point for telling our own stories, not an imprisonment for how to do so. Eisenman populates her works with emotionally resonant cartoonish figures of herself, her friends, and imagined characters. Her scenes feel like Toulouse-Lautrec French cafes, but with a bunch of Brooklyn queers and hipsters. She says her paintings take on lives of their own, never knowing where they'll lead her until completion. 2 among many of the paintings of hers that I've studied are Sunday Night Dinner, as seen on the left here, and Beer Garden with AK. Her paintings echo the narrative complexity and crowded compositions of the 16th century Flemish master Peter Bruegel the Elder, who is known for his wide-ranging scenes of peasant life that blend humor and folklore in somewhat grotesque depictions. Eisenman's art radiates tenderness, quirkiness, art history, and dark humor. These paintings taught me how to render people in multiple modes within a single artwork: amorphed, exposed, romantically preoccupied, disinterested, flesh-faced, mirroring my own feelings toward each person I observe. I realized I could use my abilities to capture distinct personalities for unique moments of intimacy, which was a breakthrough for me. This is evident in one of my earlier works, Stephen's Perspective. Inspired by Eisenman, I began crafting my own characters and building dynamic scenes. In this piece, I played with how we enter the frame, sitting where my friends sat at the table, forcing the viewer to dine with us, and I began to imagine what chaos this perspective might bear witness to with the banter and laughter of my friends and family during my beloved boyfriend's birthday celebration. I used an unnatural color palette and manipulated figures to express personality and atmosphere, for the first time painting from the feeling of my memory rather than heavily relying on photographs. By creating multiple focal points, I mimicked the natural ways our eyes shift when absorbing a scene, encouraging us to move through the image and experience its energy, bringing different elements in and out of focus. These decisions allowed me to fill the canvas with overlapping stories, much like Eisenman's densely populated works. When asked of her work, she stated, "I'm fascinated by that contrast between tenderness and the intrusion of the real world. I'm convinced that aggression and empathy, or whatever the active feeling is, get transcribed into the paint by the artist. To me, what carries the emotional content in paint is not the image. It's really the texture. Texture is sculptural, and it's a very primal experience." This painting, titled Wednesdays, was born from the overstimulation and uncertainty during my first year as a graduate student, a time marked by anxiety and self-doubt about entering the fine art world. Wednesdays is a mindscape, a twilight zone, a person burrowed within the depths of their imagination, surrounded by any invasive thought that pops up, finding solace in humor and painting the guilt of eating fast food and playing too much Pokemon Go. I couldn't quiet my mind, had difficulty sleeping, and was obsessively overanalyzing everything that worried me. For some, the overwhelming accumulation of items in its composition and intense oozing neon reds caused a sense of consternation and unease. The anxiety I experienced at the time of making this painting was my soon-to-be diagnosed PTSD bubbling to the surface, a byproduct stemming from my childhood traumas and my body's physiological response to stress. It was the first unexpected battle from my past that I would have to overcome to continue in this program. Echoing Eisenman's sentiment, those active feelings were transcribed into the paint. However, as one who lives in a constant state of unease, what may feel like chaos to some is a state of mind that I know very well and have grown very comfortable operating within. Like an animal burrowed for temporary refuge, this is a place of protection from predators, from threats, from art critiques gone far south, from trying to live up to the expectations of others, and from trying to make a name in water that feels impossible to swim in for someone who despises networking. This piece provides a sense of comfort for me because I created a visual representation of a state of mind that I find pleasing to look at in retrospect of living within it. It is exactly the overwhelming abundance of layered patterns, symbols, repetitive motifs of intense color, shape, and abstract mark making that bleeds to convey the complex emotion felt during the making of this painting. As Alice Neal would say, I paint to try to reveal the struggle, tragedy, and joy of life. I fell in love with the freedom of shape, color, and pattern in Eisenman's Another Green World, in the way these elements blur the boundaries between figure and abstraction. A cacophony of limbs and texture, it felt as though I had discovered another artist who, like me, finds comfort in a flurry of jam-packed composition and storytelling, something that activates the same parts of my brain as the classic I Spy scholastic picture books from the 1990s, with more secrets revealed the longer you study the image. In my portrait, Stephen, a painting about close friendship, I again invite the viewer into the scene as if they're sitting on the floor across from a companion. The rug on the bedroom floor to the right nods to another green world's foundation, a frenzy of genuine friendship and camaraderie among people comfortably crammed into one another's personal space. My painting depicts my dear friend Stephen Morales, who, out of the convenient, compliant disposition of his nature, my desperation for a free human model, and love, basically became a muse in more of my art to come. That same checkered pattern bled into another piece I made that same year. A hand-painted digital grid superimposed over an abstracted landscape titled My Garden, or Cunt. The way I paint can become so rigorous with detail that it starts to feel like a chore. When I voiced that frustration, my chair, Professor Poindexter, encouraged me to work on multiple paintings at once, and to keep at least one of them fully abstract, really leaning into my intuition. I'm equal parts a process painter and a representational one, so working purely abstractly gave me real freedom and reinvigorated the act of making without the militant constraint of obsessing over an end result. I let my instincts drive the composition, and I let raw emotion come through in layered elements and texture. This form of self-discovery, without pressure, keeps what I pour on the canvas from becoming static or contrived. It allowed me to play and decompress in the studio while I took on the largest painting I made in the program. Carrot Cake, or Love Garden, is a 10-foot by 19-foot mural painted on canvas wherein I pay homage to my beloved friends, family, and artists who have inspired me throughout history. It's filled with autobiographical symbolisms about joy, love, death, and vices. It's both lighthearted and reflective, expressing a sense of freedom while also inviting deeper contemplation. Initially inspired by Sandro Botticelli's Primavera, an allegory of spring and rebirth, and the beautifully strange color and deconstruction in Fauvist painter Henri Matisse's Joy of Life, the work evolved into the backdrop of a play for my friends and family to perform in my very own Garden of Love. It's an expansive landscape with surreal elements, whimsical soft beams of light, twinkling green bits of fairy dust, romance, bats, cigarettes, and credit card debt. I wanted it to be completely immersive in both scale and figuratively in regard to my life. I convinced Professor America Garcia during our independent study to let me work on only one piece for the duration of our 3.5 months that I needed to get out of my system, having been painting murals for other people for over 5 years. It felt like the first time I managed to truly create a portal for escape into a magical world. Titled Carrot Cake, because nearly at its center sits a slice of carrot cake, signifying the richness and overindulgence of the painting in both color and detail. The two characters I like to jokingly remind my parents are them, but truthfully are placeholders for anyone who has ever sat with a companion, people watching or judging the outside world as couples do. It's full of my secret lexicon of symbols and stories. I will often refer to photographs taken from beautiful places I've traveled to, such as this fountain in a 19th century castle in southern Germany. Or because I had already used Stephen in this painting, I had to photograph myself as well, to pose as a blue goddess extending from the tree line above, offering a lime green iPod Nano, a reference to a tender moment when a friend offers to share a headphone on the school bus in a time when music was a lifeline and gift from the gods. Like a highway of information, there are hundreds of things that flow in and out of my mind when I'm making art, like this still from the 2001 movie Shrek that was saved on my phone 5 years prior to making this painting, because the landscape's rolling hills and dangling silhouette of leaves are gorgeous, and I knew I would steal from it at some point in my life. The piece was so large, I had to make a quick render to figure out the scale, placement, and perspective of possible characters. As for my guys on the swing, they were actually born from their placeholders, which felt so perfectly absurd that I didn't have the heart to change one thing about them. Another artist that has had a big impact on my art formally and conceptually is Mr. Peter Doig. As written in a blurb about the artist on ArtNet, Doig is celebrated as one of the most important representational painters working today. His paintings are characterized by their equal focus on both landscapes and figures, melding personal photographic references into painterly abstractions with distinctive compositions. Doig crafts dreamlike, psychologically charged landscapes with hallucinatory palettes and expressionist brushwork, which give his paintings a mysterious, often melancholic air. Similarly to my own process, he draws from found images, film stills, newspaper clippings, personal photos, and influences such as Edvard Munch and Paul Gauguin, weaving these sources into a single composition. Signature to Doig's style is his otherworldliness, dreamlike application of paint, exemplified in my favorite work of his, Gasthof zur Muiden-Taschbara, meaning an old German tavern at the Mulde Dam, with its candy-laden pattern of brick that tickled my brain the same way Eisenman's checkered floor had. The story of this painting is derived from a photograph taken when the artist was working as a dresser at the London Coliseum. One night, after a production of Igor Stravinsky's burlesque ballet Petrushka, Doig and a friend got costumes from the performance and comically posed for a snapshot. The artist initially used the photo as the basis for a figure study. He then superimposed the two figures on a landscape he borrowed from an antique postcard, which depicted the old German tavern at the Mulde Dam. This story hosts a slew of events that are an example of how an image can be the jumping-off point for a painting. In Doig's painting, layered with different histories, the view has undergone strange chromatic shifts, resulting in a fantastical nocturnal scene that resembles a theatrical backdrop. The men at the gate have a metaphysical presence, with a winding path behind them seemingly leading into another realm beyond the edge of the painting. Sitting on my candy stone floor, in the bottom right corner of Carrot Cake, I commemorated the death of my beloved tortoiseshell calico cat Adelaide, a companion for over 15 years, placing one of Andy Warhol's famous ink cat illustrations next to her, keeping her company in the afterlife, a memento mori honoring them both. Andy Warhol, like me, loved cats and was known to have 25 cats at one point in his Lexington Avenue apartment he shared with his mother until her death. 25 Cats Named Sam and One Blue Pussy is an artist book comprised of 16 lithographs of cats, each named Sam, and a 17th simply captioned One Blue Pussy. The book affectionately depicts cats in various postures of play and repose. Very few copies of the book were sold, as most were given away as gifts to friends and clients. The calligraphy was hand-painted by Warhol's mother, and the coloring of the lithographs was done at coloring parties with friends. It's in Warhol's early ink drawings and collaborations with his friends and his mother that I find I am the most touched by. When I paint a direct copy of a Warhol cat, it's not only an Easter egg for those that know and appreciate his history, but a love letter to my own mother. It's a form of autobiographical symbolism that is linked to a major point of pain in my heart, and a way for me to have her present when she can't be in my real life. Originally, I created this painting as a smaller version of Carrot Cake, but Peaceable Kingdom quickly became a completely different animal of its own. The title refers to Edward Hicks' 62 painting series titled The Peaceable Kingdom, an allegory of earthly and spiritual harmony in a holy prophecy about kinship between man and animal. The humor, of course, is that mine, filled with a bunch of unsanctimonious degenerates, is built from first-hand experiences and vices. It's a celebration of life, the good in the bad, and is a meditation on an artist's imagination. By then, I'd developed a recurring cast, the Batman, a stand-in for my boyfriend, blissfully unaware that he's about to be struck by love, by me, the angelic Cupid. We're painted as paper cutouts, a reference to the sticky note doodles that I leave for him to find each morning before work. As her memory slowly fades, so does her placeholder, and instead there lies the blurry gesture of my beloved cat Adelaide curled beside me in the bottom left corner. And of course, nearby sits a Warhol cat. Wine, cheese puffs, coffee, a romantic swirl of cigarette smoke whirling through the air. I was injecting my work with as much of my DNA as possible to achieve a deep level of authenticity. Most of these are symbols for my mother. I'm certain it's been bred into me to love coffee as much as I do, to the point where it's become a vice along with the other more obvious ones. Cigarettes have become the primary placeholders for her. She smokes a pack of 305s a day, and while it's prematurely aged her and has obvious negative health connotations, the smell of cigarettes reminds me of my childhood and a time when my family was united. As problematic as we all were, we were together. It was our dysfunctional, peaceable kingdom. Grief has many faces and rarely arrives the way we expect. Grappling with deep loss while working and navigating the stress of graduate school was difficult, to say the least. When old wounds open, it can be a shock to the system. I began looking into research on the body's physiological response to stimuli like love and loss, and that's when I found neuroscientist Stephanie Cacioppo, author of Wired for Love, a neuroscientist's journey through romance, loss, and the essence of human connection. Speaking about the physiology of heartache, she notes that it activates some of the same brain regions, like the anterior cingulate cortex, that respond to physical pain. Following a career in art through academia requires publicly speaking about your work, an intensely vulnerable experience for me. While making art in these situations can be cathartic, my process is more self-reflective. Art helps me understand not only my place in the world, but where I land within the tapestry of my own history. These thoughts and emotions found their way into one of my most recent paintings, Madonna Moderna, or the Modern Mother. I have experienced major traumatic events throughout my life, one of which has been the alcoholism and abandonment of my mother, and another the premature death of my good friend David Wilcox, who drank himself to death at age 35 in 2023. I recognize alcoholism as a disease, the cruelty of its nature being that the only path to healing lies in the will of the afflicted, a willpower that the disease so often erodes, killing the human spirit. It is devastating to watch. We were remarkably close, my mother and I, up until just about teenhood, when she inevitably severed ties by moving to Georgia with her new family, leading to almost a decade of silence throughout my 20s. It is the abrupt severing of a once profoundly strong bond that makes the loss of those quality years together so deeply painful. It's mourning someone who is still alive. Curious about her life, this painting started from a photograph I stumbled upon of my mother, Yvonne Fox, last year on Facebook. My intention was not to create a replica of it, but to express the complex pain and love that I have for her living inside of me through the application of paint, through its texture. I needed to see it on the skin and in the eyes. I was trying to communicate something somewhere between love and loss. Because I'm interested in the dynamics of family and capturing the essence of friends and loved ones through portraiture, I naturally have been captivated by the works of Alice Neel. Neel's portraits are defined by their raw honesty and profound psychological depth, capturing the inner truths of her subjects with empathy. A collector of souls, Neel's talent lies in her unflinching gazes, bold outlines, and unconventional color to expose the vulnerable humanity beneath her subjects. She only captures what is necessary to communicate the soul of another and doesn't waste a minute on anything else. This pastel painting, while intended to be a study, wound up awakening a yearning I had to create work that was light and airy amidst working through my complicated past. Years of trying to prove my technical ability, I found it particularly difficult to get to the point where I could paint more loosely. I had to give myself time constraints, like this one being completed in only 15 minutes. Dominoes is a portrait of one of my brothers, Shane, playing dominoes with some of his buddies during one of his little boy's 4th birthday party. It's an unapologetically honest snapshot of a seemingly mundane moment in time. However, it's these moments that we can't afford to overlook because they show what it is to be human. Shoes off, socks in the dirt, drinking a Coors Light, thinking about your next move, while the others are distracted by something off frame, perhaps a crying child. Jeffrey Hendricks and Brian is another image that I had hoarded on my phone for years because I felt an instantaneous attachment to it, jealous and in awe of how Neil could capture two seemingly polar opposite personalities, yet make me feel like I was looking at soulmates in such a deceivingly simple way of rendering. I knew I needed to try something new. And by new, I mean I painted Stephen again. This painting is titled Morales Family Portrait, or Milkmaid. He had recently experienced a huge event in his life. He and his wonderful girlfriend, now fiance, had given birth to a brand new beet red baby girl named Ophelia, turning him into a biological father for the first time. All mushed together like a three-headed monster with his beloved girlfriend and her son, they produced a blended family unit of their own. Like Neil, I deliberately distort and paint unconventional features to emphasize character, resulting in portraits that reveal the subject's humanity beyond a simple physical likeness. The painting speaks about a contemporary family and the unexpected struggles of power dynamics, household economics, shared space, and the subconscious anxieties I have surrounding family. These anxieties were only revealed to me after the painting's completion. Fears like the loss of identity after becoming a mother, or perhaps never becoming one at all. The stress and exhaustion, the shift from parenting someone else's child to your own, hoping to have the capacity of love to do it well. The self-doubt, and the literal chaos and uncleanliness that often ensues with having a family. Being millennials, Stephen and I, among almost all of my friends, were naturally petrified by the idea of having children of our own. While it's changed him, this is the happiest version of Stephen that I have known since we met at age 14 in front of a Borders. I adore this painting because it holds an important part of my history within it and is a reminder of my family origins. Being able to bear witness to the lives of those that we love and cherish as we age is a luxury that is not afforded to everyone. Lastly, Mama Marmalade is a painting about reclaiming my sense of identity without shame. Becoming proud of where I come from and who I am is something that I have only recently grown into as a woman. She is comfortable within her own skin. She exudes wisdom, confidence, and an unabashed sense of self, basking in the distinctive green and yellowish hues of chartreuse. She is acidic, yet playful. A classic marmalade is made from the bitter and sour Seville oranges cooked into a sweet preserve that includes the peel, pulp, and chunks of rind. My art is a direct and honest extension of who I am. Imperfect, unconventional, a little funny, deeply loving, and undeniably weird. Thank you.